Welcome or welcome back. My name is Michaela, and today I'm going to be talking about my experience doing 75 hard. So this is mostly going to be a recap and a reflection of my experience doing 75 hard, just for those people who are considering doing it themselves, or just people who are more interested in learning about what 75 hard is. So first things first, let's answer that question, what is 75 hard? So technically 75 hard is a mental toughness challenge. I do think it's really common for people to use this challenge as a weight loss program or a fitness program or a health program, but truthfully it's not supposed to be those things as per the creator. It's supposed to be for mental toughness, for discipline, for grit, for increasing confidence, things of that nature. As for the actual challenge, it is 75 days long, which is why it's called 75 hard, and there are 5 rules of the challenge. One rule is that you are supposed to do 2 workouts every single day, and both of the workouts have to be 45 minutes long. One of your workouts has to be outside. And technically, you're also supposed to do your 2 workouts at least 3 hours apart. Another rule of the challenge is that you are supposed to follow some sort of diet, and you're not allowed to have any cheat meals at all. You're also not allowed to have alcohol throughout the entire challenge. But with this, you do have some control because you are choosing the diet you want to follow. So you could be vegetarian or vegan, you could do the Mediterranean diet, you could do a paleo diet or a high protein diet, a whole foods diet. I think you can also make up your own diet and follow your own diet rules, I think. Rule number 3 is that you have to drink a gallon of water every single day. Rule number 4 is that you are supposed to read some sort of nonfiction, self-help, educational, self-improvement type book. I do believe a caveat to this rule is you're supposed to read a physical book. Technically, I don't think you're allowed to read audiobooks if you're trying to follow the official rules of 75 hard. And the last rule is to take a progress picture every single day. So now that you know what the challenge is and you've heard all the rules, you might be thinking, that is crazy. That's crazy to expect someone to do all 5 of those things every single day for 75 days straight. The creator of the challenge also says if you miss a rule or mess up somehow, then you have to restart the challenge at day 1. So if you, for instance, read 5 pages instead of 10 pages on day 50 of the challenge, then you're technically supposed to stop and then restart again at day 1. So I know that seems super crazy when you're hearing that. The first time I heard about it, the thing that sounded the craziest to me was doing 2 workouts a day, 45 minutes each. That to me was just super crazy hearing for the first time. But those are the rules of the challenge, and I do just want to note really fast, some people really don't like this opinion, but it is an opinion, it's not fact. My personal opinion is the official rules of 75 hard might not be for everyone. That's not to say that you can't do it. That's just to say that might not be the best course of action for you, depending on lots of things. For instance, if you work a crazy long shift at work, something like 12, 14 hours, you genuinely might not have enough waking hours in the day to do your 2 workouts 3 hours apart. Okay, so if something small like that, the 3 hours apart rule, if something small like that is prohibiting you from doing the challenge, just find some way that's gonna work for you. So when you hear these rules and you think, I couldn't do that, I could not make that work in my life for whatever reason, consider just changing a rule. Some people like to call that 75 hard-ish. It doesn't really matter what you call it. If you wanna challenge yourself in some way, you can do it. You don't have to do the official challenge. You don't have to call it by a certain name. Just do something that works for you, and that's totally okay. People might not like it and people might disagree with it, but that doesn't really matter. The challenge is for you, so their opinions aren't really relevant to what you're doing. One more thing I want to touch on, if you, like me, are maybe a little sensitive to toxic or triggering or obsessive or compulsive tendencies, then proceed with caution if you're gonna do a challenge like this because, and I'll touch on this more throughout the video with some rules in particular, but some things in this challenge really do lend themselves to forming toxic or truly unhealthy habits. So if you think you might be sensitive to things like that too, then I would just proceed with caution and really be aware of those things if you're trying to do the challenge. And if you can sense yourself really getting to a bad place with certain rules, then maybe stop the challenge, pause the challenge, redo the challenge later, because the achievement of finishing the challenge is not more important and should not be more important than your actual health. So if it's actually depleting your quality of life and your health, then it might not be something you need to continue doing. Okay, your health should obviously be the most important thing, and I'm talking mental and physical health. If it's really tearing you down in some way, probably stop the challenge. But with that being said, I'll tell you a little bit about why I decided to do the challenge, and then we're gonna go through all 5 of the rules, and I'll sort of reflect and recap how I did with each of these rules. So I have a few reasons why I wanted to do this challenge. I think it's really common for people to have more than one reason for doing this challenge. Like I said earlier, a lot of people do this challenge because they want to lose weight. And I see how some people can make it work for them that way to lose weight, but that was not my goal at all. I think the biggest reason why I wanted to do this challenge is because I have never seen myself as an athletic or sporty or fit type person. I feel like I'm more of a creative and bookish type person. I've talked about this a lot in some of my earlier 75 hard videos, but I really just wanted to prove to myself that even though I don't identify as some super athletic and fit type person, I could still do a challenge like this. I wanted to prove that you don't have to be sporty to do a challenge like this. And you don't have to have any background in exercising or playing sports or anything like that. You don't have to have that to do this challenge. You can literally start the challenge tomorrow, even if you've never ever worked out before. So the main reason I wanted to do this is just to prove to myself that I could. And another reason I wanted to do this is just to give myself a challenge, just kind of like for fun, I guess, or, you know, you just sometimes feel a sense of achievement or pride when you do something difficult. So that's sort of the outcome that I was channeling and the outcome that I was hoping I could bring to my life. And then maybe a more minor reason was just, I thought it would help me implement some healthier habits into my life, but truly that was like at the bottom of the list. I really just wanted to prove to myself that I actually could do this challenge. And I did finish the challenge, so that's awesome. So yeah, it's okay if you've never been to the gym before. Those things are not requirements or prerequisites to do this challenge. And that's sort of where I was coming into this challenge. I've never really been a super active type person. So if you relate to me in that way, just know that you can still do this challenge even without that history and that prior experience. All right, I've got my notebook because I took a ton of notes about what I wanted to say in this, so I'm gonna go through each rule and tell you my experience and perspective about each one. So the first one I'm gonna talk about is the rule of doing 2 workouts every single day, and they have to be 45 minutes each. One has to be outside, and technically they are supposed to be 3 hours apart. So with a challenge that's 75 days long, you will probably experience some change throughout the challenge. So the workouts for me had a lot of change. At the beginning of the challenge, I was mostly doing walks and doing yoga for my workouts. And those are arguably less strenuous than doing something like strength training at the gym or running a 5K. You know, those are gonna be less strenuous workouts. That's mostly what I was doing at the beginning of the challenge. Also at the beginning of the challenge, it was summer and it was really, really hot where I live, so I went swimming for some of my workouts, and I really enjoyed doing that. Sort of in the middle of the challenge, I did a few dance fitness workout videos on YouTube, but towards the end of the challenge, once I got used to moving my body every day, twice a day for 45 minutes, my tolerance and my desire to do more strenuous workouts increased. So towards the end of the challenge, I actually did end up going to the gym, doing strength training. And again, that's from somebody who had never been to the gym before, has no real experience lifting weights or using gym equipment, none of that. But I did start doing a little bit of strength training, and I, at the very end of the challenge, started running too. I'm actually filming a running video right now, so stay tuned, more on running later in a different video. But yeah, there was a progression with my workout of me doing less strenuous things towards the beginning and then sort of increasing the amount of strenuous workouts that I ended up doing. One thing I will say about this rule as well, coming from somebody who that was the most shocking rule of the challenge, you might be thinking, how can I actually work out that much every day without taking any days off for 75 days straight? Like, wouldn't that be bad for your body? Could you get injured? Don't you need rest days? And if you are doing super strenuous activities, then maybe, yes, you probably would need a rest day, but through the challenge, what you'll actually end up doing is having active rest days, and that means instead of going on a really long run, you might just take a walk, and that's totally fine. It's okay for walking to be your workout. You don't have to do highly strenuous workouts twice a day, every single day for 75 days. You do not have to do that. So please don't try to go into the challenge thinking you're gonna have to be some impressive bodybuilder every single day. You don't have to do that. Walking and yoga were definitely my friends when I felt like I needed a rest. So one thing also that made the workouts a little bit easier is I actually had a walking pad. I got it like halfway through the challenge. And so that made exercising super accessible for me because I could do it literally in the comfort of my own home. I could put the walking pad in front of the TV and watch TV while I did it, or a lot of times I would play the Switch, my Nintendo Switch, on the treadmill or the walking pad. So yeah, the walking pad for me was a game changer, and I do still use it even after the challenge. And about the outdoor workouts, I know that might push away some people, but for me, I loved that part of it because I love being outside. I love being outside in the fresh air, especially when the weather is nice. To me, that's one of the truest and purest joys in life, is just to be outside. So in my experience, that didn't really make things harder. Now, I will say there were 2 or 3 times, maybe more actually, that I got caught in the rain when I was doing an outdoor workout. And at that point, I mean, truthfully, you're probably sweating already if you're doing the workout, so what's the rain gonna do, really, you know? I usually would check the weather app before I would go on a workout just to make sure there wasn't rain in the forecast. Sometimes rain happened even when it wasn't in the forecast. That's just sort of something you have to deal with when you're doing the challenge, but for me, I liked that I had to do a workout outside every day. And overall, this rule was not as hard as I expected it to be. I went into this thinking this was going to be a very difficult rule to follow. But truthfully, once I got into the routine of it, it was like second nature. I was not even thinking about it. So yeah, overall, this rule I thought was gonna be really, really hard, but I actually really enjoyed it, and it was not as hard as I thought it would be. So I would consider that a win. Okay, the next rule I'll talk about is the following a diet rule. This one was the bane of my existence during the challenge. For me personally, this was the absolute hardest part of the challenge. And full disclosure, I don't like dieting. I don't typically support dieting. I know that some people have to do that for health reasons, but if you don't have to do that for health reasons, typically, I would not be a fan or an encourager of dieting, and I'm still not. I am not an encourager of dieting, but I did do it because I wanted a challenge, and I wanted to prove to myself that I could do 75 hard. So even though I wasn't happy about it, I did do the diet anyway. And like I said earlier, you can choose a diet that's already out there in the world, like the paleo diet. I think you can also come up with your own diet. What I did, so I was doing sort of a clean eating diet or a whole foods diet. I wasn't eating processed foods, fast food, soda, things like that. I think some people consider that to not be a diet and more of just a way of eating, but I mean, way of eating is diet, you know? And doing that particular diet, I felt like I had to cook at home a lot for like 95% of my meals, probably, because most restaurants don't really have whole foods or clean foods that you can eat. I mean, most restaurants don't even have, nutrition facts or an ingredient list, so you can't even check those things even if you wanted to. So I did end up cooking at home a lot, and I grew to really resent having to cook for myself. It started to feel like a chore, honestly. And it was also really inconvenient some days. If you have a really long work day, or if you're on vacation, or if you're traveling or something, it can be really inconvenient to do a diet like that. So it did feel really restrictive for me. I think something that might have felt less restrictive is something like having a calorie limit, maybe. So overall, you're trying to eat healthy, whatever that means to you, but you can still eat a lot of different types of food as long as it's staying under your calorie limit. Or there's a YouTuber named Jenna Hong who did this challenge as well, and she did intermittent fasting. So there were certain hours in the day where she could eat and certain hours where she wasn't supposed to eat. In hindsight, I think something like that would have been better suited for me and my personality and my relationship with food and my relationship with cooking. But hindsight is 2020. So I did stick to the diet, but it was really, really difficult for me and I really didn't like it most of the time. But one really good thing about the diet I chose, I learned a lot about food in general, about ingredients, and I also learned about my own personal hunger cues and my habits with snacking. So overeating and snacking naturally lessened during this diet, which for me personally was a good thing because I was snacking too much and I was overeating at times. So that really did help me become aware of those tendencies that I have and to stop them when necessary. So even though I don't like dieting and I typically wouldn't support dieting, I do think I got benefits out of dieting. So it wasn't all bad, but I still really struggled with this one. And I do want to give one more reminder that if you are sensitive to things about dieting or restricting what foods you can eat, then please just be mindful about doing this challenge and maybe consider altering it a little bit if that's going to be the healthiest choice for you. Because again, the achievement of saying you have completed 75 hard, that is not more important than your health and your lifelong relationship with food and your body. Next rule is drinking a gallon of water a day. This is probably the second hardest rule for me personally. And I thought this was interesting because I'm already a big water drinker. I typically drink water at every meal. I drink water at home. I drink water when I go out to eat at restaurants. I'm typically only drinking water. So I kind of thought that this was gonna be easy for me, but it actually was not. It wasn't drinking water that was hard, it was the amount of water I had to drink that was hard. And again, not to be like a constant hater, but one thing I did not love about this rule is that every person, regardless of their height, weight, climate, activity level, every person is required to drink the same amount of water. And the reason that irritated me is because every body is different and needs different things. But then I had to keep reminding myself, okay, this isn't about health. This isn't about drinking the right amount of water for you. This is a mental toughness challenge. So you're not drinking a gallon of water because it's right for you and your body. You're drinking a gallon of water because it's difficult, because you're trying to increase your discipline and your mental toughness. So that was something I had to keep reminding myself because I kept being like, I'm a small person, I'm 5'2", so I kept being like, how is it fair that I have to drink the same amount of water as someone who's like 6'4" and 250 pounds? Like, how can that be fair? But I did drink the water anyway. I will say, hopefully this isn't TMI, but if you're drinking a ton of water, you're gonna be peeing a lot. I was peeing so much. And I've heard other people do this challenge say that their body gets used to the amount of water and their bladder can hold more water and they don't have to go as frequently. But for me, I didn't really notice my body getting used to it. I felt like I was constantly having to go pee like every hour or 2 hours throughout the entire challenge. I don't think that that ever lessened as I got to the middle and the end of the challenge, even though some people said that it happened like that for them. And truthfully, if you are peeing a ton more than usual, you're probably gonna go through more toilet paper. You're gonna have to buy more toilet paper for yourself than you're used to. I know that's really weird to say, but yeah, the constant drinking of water and the constant peeing really has like small side effects that you wouldn't even think about until you're actually doing the challenge. And one other really hard part about the water is actually two things. One is making sure you finish your water early enough in the day that you're not chugging at night and then waking up throughout the night to go pee. Because nobody wants to lose sleep over something like this, you know? So that was a hard part. And then the second thing that was hard was honestly just tracking the water. Because if you're relying on, you go to a restaurant, how much water is in this cup? I don't know. Is it 8 ounces? Is it 16? I don't know. There's no way for me to know. So you kind of have to have a system for yourself of how you're going to track the water. For me personally, I would just carry around the same water bottle, and I just knew how many of that water bottle I needed to drink to achieve the goal. But yeah, that's another hard part. Is it's one thing to drink a gallon of water, but it's another thing to actually track it and know that you've reached a gallon. So yeah, this rule was probably the second hardest for me. It was challenging, and I really didn't expect it to be, but that's how it was. And last thing I'll say about the water rule is make sure you're washing your water bottle, especially if, like me, you're using the same one basically every day of the challenge. Because you can really actually get yourself sick from the bacteria if you're not washing your water bottle. So don't forget to wash it. Okay, next rule, I'm gonna talk about the reading 10 pages of nonfiction. For me personally, this was not hard at all because like I said earlier, I am the bookish type person. I do love reading. I already have a habit of reading every night before bed. So this wasn't really hard for me. It was more of just, I don't typically read nonfiction. So I did have to go to the library and like actually seek out nonfiction to read and try to find something that would at least be interesting to me to read. The only hard part about this was my routine was reading my 10 pages before bed. So if I ever had a really long day and I was super tired, sometimes like my eyes were drooping and I was actually falling asleep while I was reading, and I would have to like shake myself back awake and finish the 10 pages before I could go to sleep. So that was really the only hard part about it for me. But overall, I mean, reading 10 pages, that was not a challenge at all for me personally. I guess I could have increased it if I wanted to make it a true challenge for myself, but I didn't. I just followed the rules the way they were. The books that I did read, I'm gonna read them out of my notebook. They were Your Money or Your Life by Vicki Robin and Joe Dominguez. I think I read that during 75 Hard. I read it very recently, so it had to be on 75 Hard. So yeah, Your Money or Your Life, that is sort of a financial book about saving money, spending money, investing money. It's a money book. But I know for sure I did read An Appeal to the World by the Dalai Lama. This was more of just an informational book, I guess, very nonfiction and not really self-development. But I would say this is a good book to read if you're not a reader already, because the book itself is small, which means the pages are smaller. So reading 10 pages would be easier on a book like this than Your Money or Your Life, because Your Money or Your Life, the words on the page were really dense and tightly packed together. So reading 10 pages of that is arguably harder and will take longer than reading something like An Appeal to the World by the Dalai Lama. So just keep that in mind if you're wanting to do the challenge but you're not a big reader. I also read the little book of Huga, I don't know how to say that even still, by Mike Viking. This book is about how Danish people live really cozy lives, and it's like an art form to them and it's very cultural for them. I thought it was super interesting. So yeah, if you're trying to live a more comfy, cozy life and you're wanting to know how to do that, then that would be a book you might want to read. Another book I read was Braving the Wilderness by Brene Brown. This was, I guess, technically sort of a self-help book or a self-development book. I wouldn't really know what else to categorize that as far as genre, but it's sort of about being really rooted in yourself and confident in yourself and being okay when people either don't like you or don't support a belief you have, or they disagree with you in some way. So really just being centered in yourself and being strong enough in your self-worth that you don't crumble when people disagree with you or don't like you. I also read Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport. This book is basically about how and why you might want to reduce your screen time on your phone. I actually really enjoyed this book. Actually, some chapters I was like, that was kind of pointless. And then some chapters I was like, this is amazing. What a 5-star book. But overall, I did like this book. I think I would say that Digital Minimalism and Your Money or Your Life were probably my favorite books that I read during the challenge. But even still past the challenge, I am exploring different ways where I can be off my phone less and even like revert to analog things when I can instead of relying on my phone all the time. So that's something I've really enjoyed exploring, even post finishing this book and post 75 Hard. The last book, so I actually finished Digital Minimalism on day 73, which means I had to start a new book just for the last 2 days of the challenge. The book that I started is called How to Do Nothing, and I did read this for the last 2 days of the challenge, and then I didn't read any more of it, so I did not finish this book, but I think that's okay because I had already finished the challenge by the time I decided not to finish the book. So those are the books that I read, and again, the 10 pages of nonfiction, it was not difficult for me. I will mention again, just slight encouragement if you feel like for some reason you just can't get your hands on a nonfiction book and you have no other option but to listen to an audiobook, even though that's technically against the official rules. I mean, we're all different people, you know? If you feel like that is the one thing stopping you from completing this challenge, then I think it's totally fine for you to read audiobooks instead of physical books, because you still will probably gain so much more from doing the challenge with a modified rule than from not doing the challenge at all. The last rule that I'm going to give a reflection and a recap for is the progress picture rule. So if you have watched any of my videos, you might know that I don't like this rule for a few different reasons. One reason is the progress picture didn't really get me closer to my main goal of challenging myself or proving to myself that I can do something very health related and rooted in fitness. But for people whose main goal doing this challenge is to lose weight or to bulk up or whatever it is, if you're trying to change your body in some way, then the progress picture is a great tool because then you can actually see how your body is changing throughout the challenge. But if you're not trying to change your body, then the progress picture isn't really that helpful or necessary. It's just another thing that you have to do throughout the challenge. But another thing about the progress picture is that I think for some people it can do more harm than good to, take a picture and look at your body with a certain mindset of this is what I look like and I don't want to look like this. I want to change XYZ about my body. I think that can start going downhill really fast, and I think that for some people it has a high potential of increasing toxic or mentally unhealthy behaviors. So for that reason, I did not like this rule, but I did do it. I did take the progress picture every day. I did not really ever look at the pictures. I didn't look at them after I took them, and I didn't look at them after the challenge either. I kind of just didn't want to know. But that's just my personal preference. For some people, I understand it can be totally motivational and inspirational to see how your body is getting healthier or leaner over time. But for me personally, I did not like this rule, and I really only just did it so that I could check it off. I think too, just taking a progress picture can be misleading because some bodies that appear really healthy and aspirational to some people might not actually be genuinely healthy bodies that are getting enough nutrients or bodies that can do any sort of physical activity you want to do. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, some bodies are truly healthy, like you eat great, you exercise great, everything's super well balanced, but your body may not look as quote unquote healthy as you feel inside, or your body to some people may not be as aspirational, even though you're truly healthy on the inside. So I do think the progress picture can be a little bit misleading at times. You know, the desirable body might not be healthy, but the healthy body might not be desirable, whatever that means to you. Again, I feel like I'm being a hater about this challenge by pointing out the flaws as I see them, but this is my experience and these are my personal opinions. You're obviously very welcome to disagree with me, and that's totally okay for us to disagree. Okay, it's actually getting a little dark outside, so I'm gonna finish up really quickly. My general overall thoughts about the challenge, it was more positive than negative, thankfully. Really, the only big negatives, apart from earlier, I talked about not liking the dieting, not liking the progress picture, but apart from that, I really only had 2 hard days on the challenge. One of them was a day where I had an extra long shift at work. And then when I was going home, my car wouldn't start because my battery was dead, yada, yada, yada. I got home really late that day and still had to do my second workout. So that was a hard day. And then strangely enough, my very last day of the challenge was hard for me. For some reason, I was so unmotivated on that last day. I didn't want to drink my water, didn't want to cook myself a healthy meal, didn't want to do my workouts. I don't know what had happened to me that day, but I was just super unmotivated and didn't want to do anything. But obviously, I did it anyway, and that's just a part of the challenge. You know, some days you don't feel like doing something, but you have to anyway if you want to keep doing the challenge. But yeah, I mean, I really only had 2 hard days that I can remember off the top of my head across the whole 75-day challenge. So I would say that's a big win. And the pros far outweighed the cons for sure. Obviously, I did meet my goals. You know, my goals were to prove to myself that I could do a challenge like this. That is very rooted in, you know, fitness and moving your body and being healthy, those sorts of things. I did prove to myself that I could do that. And then also, just giving myself a sense of accomplishment and achievement after doing something really challenging. That was my other goal, and I achieved that as well. There were also lots of positives to doing the challenge that I didn't even expect or really even know that could happen. For instance, like I said earlier, I learned a lot about food, nutrients, ingredients, and also just my own personal hunger cues and my eating habits, just being aware of those things that I naturally do and have a tendency to do. That's super useful information to have moving forward, so that's a huge plus. I think the biggest positive that came out of the challenge is I am now in a routine where I was doing 2 workouts or movement sessions. I like to call it movement instead of workouts because I feel like movement has better vibes, but you know, moving your body 2 separate times during the day was something I had to do while I was doing 75 hard, and now I don't have to do it anymore because I'm not doing the challenge anymore. I finished the challenge, but it's already a part of my routine, so I'm still doing it every day. I finished the challenge October 2nd, and today is October 17th, so it's been a little over 2 weeks since I finished the challenge, and I'm still keeping up with the 2 movements every day. So I would consider that a big win, and I'm so happy about that outcome because I didn't really expect that that would happen while doing the challenge. So that's super great. And I know a lot of people too want to watch these finishing 75 hard vlogs or like recap videos, and they really want to know how much weight did you lose, because I guess that's really inspirational or something. But for me, like, that wasn't my goal of the challenge, and I also never ever weigh myself. I haven't really weighed myself probably in 10 years. Yeah, I stopped weighing myself when I was in high school, and I've been out of high school for over 10 years now. So yeah, I can't really even tell you with certainty that I did lose weight or that I lost a certain amount of weight because I don't know. But I do think, just based on looking at myself in the mirror, you know, like, I can see changes in my body, and so I assume I lost some weight, but that's really not the important thing, and that's not what I was going for with doing this challenge anyway. So yeah, I probably lost weight, but I can't tell you how much. And I think sometimes people are curious too, like, now that you've finished the challenge, do you think you would ever do it again? Right now, people always change, opinions can always change, but right now, I don't think that I would do the official 75 hard challenge with the official rules. I don't think that I would do that again because I think I already got what I can get out of that challenge, but I do think I would consider doing 75 soft or 75 hard-ish, just doing the challenge with a few modifications maybe that suit me better. But at this point in time, I don't think I would do the official challenge with the official rules again. And I think the other thing people really like to know is what habits from the challenge are you going to carry over into your real life, if any? So as far as the workouts, the movement sessions, I do want to continue doing 2 a day. If it's a vacation day or a travel day or a super long work day or something here and there, then I might not force myself to do 2, but in my normal life, my everyday routine, I want to be doing 2 movement sessions every day. So that's something that I have already continued so far in the challenge, and I hope to continue even longer for forever maybe. The dieting, I'm definitely not going to continue dieting because I just really, as I've said multiple times, I just don't like dieting. I just think it creates a bad relationship with food where like this food is good for you and this food is bad for you and shame on you if you eat the bad food. I just don't like that. I will say I do think I will continue eating healthier than I was before, and I don't think I will overeat and over snack as much as I used to before. So there are positives to the dieting, but I'm not going to continue doing a restrictive diet. And also, before the challenge, I would frequently have stomach aches. And during the challenge, I just had amazing digestion. And so that was another like really unforeseen positive to doing the challenge that I really appreciated. As far as the water intake, I do think I will continue drinking pretty much only water everywhere I go, but I'm no longer measuring my water. I think a gallon of water for someone with like a 5'2" body like me, I almost think that's too much water for me. So I will not be aiming to drink that much anymore. I'm not going to measure my water at all anymore, but I think just keeping up with water drinking will be good enough for me. The 10 pages of nonfiction reading, I mean, I'm a huge reader already, so I'm not really even going to worry about that, and I'm definitely not going to be taking progress pictures every day, so that's sort of where I am at this point, a little over 2 weeks after ending the challenge. This is sort of where I am with those habits, and I'm really happy with where I am right now. I think the challenge has really given me a lot of positives and a lot of positives that I didn't even expect. So yeah, that is my experience doing 75 hard. I hope this was helpful or useful to you if you're considering doing the challenge or if you're already doing the challenge. I really do think overall, like the message I want to leave you with is, if you truly want to do the challenge, then do the challenge. And if for you that means modifying some of the rules, to me, in my opinion, I think doing the challenge modified is better than not doing the challenge at all. So definitely be wary though, because if you do modify it, people are not going to like it and they're probably not going to support it, but that doesn't matter. The challenge is for you and for you alone. So you do what's going to be best for you, stick to your guns, and that's going to be that. Just do it for you. Do it for you. But anyway, if you are doing the challenge or if you're starting soon, I wish you the very best of luck. You can do it, and I hope you have an amazing experience on the challenge. I do have another video coming up where I'm going to give 75 hard tips. So if you want to see that as well, then stick around and I'll be posting that very soon. But other than that, that's all I have to say for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!